My daughter called me at 7:14 on the morning of her 10th birthday. She was whispering, "Mom?" I sat straight up before she said anything else. There is a sound your child makes when she is trying very hard not to cry because she thinks crying will make a bad situation worse. That was the sound. "Where are you?" "Grandma's house." I already knew that. My in-laws had begged to have Emma overnight because Diane wanted, in her words, one special birthday morning with my granddaughter. There was supposed to be pancakes, candles, a little breakfast before Ben and I picked her up. Instead, Emma said, "I think everybody left." I was out of bed before my feet understood what was happening. "What do you mean everybody left? The car is gone. Where's Grandpa?" "I don't know." "Grandma?" "She's not here." Then Emma went quiet. "Mom, the front door is locked and I don't know the alarm code." My stomach dropped. 20 minutes later, I was standing in Diane and Frank's kitchen while Emma sat at the island wearing the pink paper birthday crown Diane had bought the night before. One point was bent. There was a bowl beside her with dry cereal in it because she had been afraid to open the refrigerator after the house alarm beeped when she walked near the back door. No pancakes, no grandparents, no note on the counter, nothing. I hugged her until she stopped shaking. Then she asked me the question that changed everything. "Grandma knew today was my birthday, right?" I looked over Emma's head at the spotless white kitchen. At the birthday banner Diane had taped crookedly over the doorway, at the unopened box of candles. "Yes," I said. Emma pulled away and looked at me. "Then why didn't she wake me up before she left?" I had no answer a 10-year-old should have to hear. My phone buzzed, not a text, a Facebook notification. Diane had tagged us in a post. She and Frank were standing beside their black SUV in front of a luxury mountain resort 4 hours away. Sunglasses, matching travel mugs, Diane's expensive cream coat. Frank holding up the keycard to their suite. The caption said, "Family is everything. Life is short, so make memories with the people who matter most." I stared at it, then I noticed the time. 6:48 a.m., 26 minutes before Emma called me from an empty house. I didn't comment. I didn't call Diane screaming. I didn't post what she had done. I took Emma home. I made chocolate chip pancakes. I stuck 10 candles into them because I couldn't find the birthday candles, and I let wax drip onto the plate. Emma barely ate. Ben came through the door just after 9. He had been working an overnight equipment installation 2 towns over. He took one look at Emma curled against me on the couch, still wearing that crushed paper crown, and his face changed. "What happened?" Emma answered before I could. "Grandma went on vacation." Ben looked confused. Then she said, "She forgot me." That hurt him more than anything I could have said. He sat beside her. "She didn't forget you." Emma looked at him with 10-year-old logic that cut cleaner than anger. "Then she left me on purpose." Ben closed his eyes. For years, whenever Diane insulted me, excluded me, corrected me in front of people, or treated our plans as optional, Ben had said some version of the same thing. "That's just Mom. She doesn't mean it like that. It's easier to let it go. She's always been controlling. Family isn't worth fighting over." I had swallowed a lot because I loved my husband. I had swallowed being seated at the far end of Christmas dinners while Diane's friends got places near her. I had swallowed Diane returning birthday gifts I bought her because they were not really her taste. I had swallowed her calling me the bookkeeper when I had spent 8 years keeping the family company from choking on its own paperwork. I had swallowed the jokes, the little digs, the way she'd say, "Ben always had such good instincts before he got married," and then smile like everyone was supposed to pretend it wasn't aimed at me. But Emma? No. They had done it to me for years. I had survived. They had done it to my daughter. Now they were going to learn what surviving without me actually looked like. At 10:32, Diane finally texted. Not Emma. Me. "Hope you got her okay." We decided to beat the traffic and leave before sunrise. She was sleeping so peacefully we hated to wake her. "We knew you'd be there soon anyway. Give birthday girl a kiss from us. Resort is gorgeous." I read it twice. There was no apology. No, we made a mistake. No, is she scared? No, how is she? Just gorgeous. Ben called her. She rejected the call. 30 seconds later, she texted him. "Can't talk. Spa appointment. Please don't create drama today." Ben put his phone face down. For once he didn't say, "That's just Mom." Emma spent her birthday watching the driveway every time a car slowed down. That evening, when we brought out the real cake, She asked if Grandma and Grandpa were coming. Ben said no. Emma nodded like she had expected it. Then she took off the paper crown and placed it beside her plate. She never put it back on. That crown stayed on my kitchen counter for 3 days. So did Diane's message. What Diane had forgotten, because Diane forgot anything that didn't flatter her, was exactly what the bookkeeper knew. I knew which card had paid for that gorgeous resort. I knew who had booked the suite. I knew whose company account was paying for the SUV sitting outside it. And I knew why Diane thought she was untouchable. Ben's parents had started the family flooring company 30 years earlier. Frank installed. Diane handled customers. When Ben came into the business, he expanded it. When I married Ben, I took over payroll and accounts because the paperwork was a disaster, and nobody wanted to admit it. There was never a grand announcement, no office with my name on the door. Diane liked telling people I helped out. I helped out 50 hours some weeks. I fixed duplicate invoices. I chased overdue accounts. I renegotiated insurance. I cleaned up years of personal expenses Diane had mixed into company spending, and every time I told her we needed clearer boundaries, she said the same thing. We're family. Stop acting like strangers. That sentence had cost me years of evenings. It had also taught me where every dollar went. The resort Diane was posting from had not been paid with Frank's personal card. It had been charged to a company travel account, $2,840 for 4 nights. Another $600 for the premium mountain package. The SUV was company leased, their gas card was company issued. Even Diane's spa reservation had been booked through the company's executive concierge program, because years earlier she had insisted vendors expected them to look successful. Normally, I would have cleaned it up after they returned, moved the personal charges, created a repayment entry, reminded Diane, waited, reminded her again. Then, 3 months later, accepted some partial check while she complained I was being petty. That morning, I did something different. I stopped fixing it. I printed the account activity exactly as it stood. Then I emailed the company's outside accountant and said I was no longer comfortable personally classifying executive family spending without written authorization. Nothing dramatic, no accusations, no threats. I attached the statements. Then I removed myself from every informal approval process Diane had spent years insisting didn't need rules because we were family. At 4:06 that afternoon, the accountant replied. He asked a simple question. Was the mountain resort trip business related? I answered with a simpler one. Please ask Diane. That was all. The next morning Diane called. I let it ring. She called again. Then she sent me a text. What did you do to the company card? I was sitting beside Emma while she opened a late birthday gift from one of her school friends. I typed, nothing. I stopped approving personal charges as business expenses. 3 dots appeared immediately. You have always handled that. I stared at those 5 words. Exactly, I replied. Not anymore. Her response came so fast I knew she had already been angry before she contacted me. You don't get to weaponize the business because your feelings are hurt. I looked at Emma. She was smoothing the ribbon from her gift around her wrist. My feelings weren't the issue. My daughter waking up alone was. So I wrote, This isn't about my feelings. You left a 10-year-old child alone in a locked house on her birthday. Diane replied, Stop being hysterical. She was perfectly safe. I saved that message. Then I put my phone away. The company card still worked that day. I hadn't frozen it. I hadn't reported it stolen. I hadn't sabotaged anything. Diane did the next part herself. The outside accountant emailed her, asking her to identify the business purpose of the trip. Diane could have said it was personal. She could have agreed to reimburse the company. She could have ended everything with one honest sentence. Instead, she wrote that it was a family client development retreat. That phrase came back to me the next day, because the accountant copied Ben. Family client development retreat. Ben read it aloud at our kitchen table. Then he looked at me. There are no clients there. I know. No employees either. I know. He scrolled farther. His jaw tightened. She listed Emma. I took his phone. Diane had written that the trip included 3rd-generation family participation for branding photographs and succession-focused marketing. Emma was supposedly part of the business purpose. Emma, the child Diane had left sleeping in an empty house. Ben whispered, You've got to be kidding me. She wasn't. Diane had used our daughter's name to justify the vacation she had abandoned her to take. And because she couldn't stand being questioned, She had doubled down. The accountant requested the itinerary and asked Diane to sign a certification confirming that the expenses were primarily business-related. I knew Diane. I knew exactly what she would do. Ben did too. He called her. This time she answered. I could hear music in the background, glasses clinking, people laughing. Diane sounded annoyed. What? Do not sign that form. Silence. Then, excuse me? Mom, it's not a business trip. Pay the company back. Diane laughed. You two are really doing this over Emma? Ben looked at me. His face went pale. Over Emma? She was alone for maybe an hour. Your wife is turning this into some neglect scandal because she's always wanted a reason to punish me. Ben stood up. Mom, she's 10. And capable of using a telephone, apparently. That was the moment something in my husband finally snapped. Not loudly, quietly. He said, Pay it back. Then he ended the call. Diane signed the certification 19 minutes later. 3 days after Emma's birthday, their perfect vacation started to unravel. At 11:37 a.m., the resort declined the company card for a private dining charge. At 11:52, it declined again. At 12:08, Diane called me 8 times. I was helping Emma build a model solar system on the dining table. My phone kept buzzing beside the bent paper crown. Emma glanced at it. Is that Grandma? Yes. She put another blue sticker on Neptune. Do I have to talk to her? No. Emma's shoulders dropped. That tiny release in her body told me more than any speech could have. I turned my phone face down. At 12:21, Diane called Ben. The accountant had temporarily suspended discretionary company card use until the travel certification could be reviewed. Not because I told him to, because Diane had signed a document claiming a family vacation was business travel, while naming a child as a participant who was 4 hours away. Diane screamed at Ben for 14 minutes. He listened. Then he asked one question. Where is Emma right now? Diane stopped. Ben repeated it. You certified yesterday that Emma was participating in this business retreat. Where is she? Diane hung up. That should have been the end of her lie. It wasn't. Control mattered more to Diane than money. If you questioned her, she didn't retreat. She made the lie bigger until everyone else got tired. That had always worked in the family. Frank would look away, Ben would ask me to let it go. I would fix whatever mess was left. Diane mistook our exhaustion for her authority. By that evening, she had invented a new version. According to the message she sent Ben, Emma had been scheduled to join them later, but I had emotionally overreacted and prevented the planned family reunion. Ben showed me the text. I actually laughed, not because it was funny, because for the first time I could see the pattern without being trapped inside it. Diane wasn't going to apologize. She was going to rewrite reality. I went back to her original message from Emma's birthday. We decided to beat the traffic and leave before sunrise. She was sleeping so peacefully we hated to wake her. 1 sentence. That was enough. But there was something else. At 8:03 the following morning, Frank called. He had barely spoken since the trip started. Usually Frank's role was silence. Diane spoke. Frank nodded. Diane insulted. Frank stared at his plate. If somebody objected, Frank said, You know how she is. This time his voice sounded tired. I need to ask you something. I waited. Did Emma really call you from the house? Yes. Alone? Yes. Long silence. Then he said, Diane told me you were already outside when we left. I closed my eyes. Of course she had. Frank continued. She said you were coming up the driveway. She told me Emma would sleep another 10 minutes and you'd walk in. Frank, I was 20 minutes away. He didn't answer. Then he said something I didn't expect. The doorbell camera. I sat up. What? It records the driveway. Diane controlled the account. I had forgotten about it completely. Frank hadn't. He gave Ben the access code. That was the only useful thing Frank did, and it was enough. The video showed their SUV backing out at 5:41 a.m. No car coming up the street. No headlights. No me. At 5:44, Diane walked back to the front door because she had forgotten her sunglasses. She unlocked it, stepped inside, came back out holding them. Then she locked the door again. Emma was upstairs asleep. At 7:09, another clip showed Emma opening the front door from inside. The alarm began chirping. She panicked and shut it. 3 minutes later, she called me. I watched that clip once, Ben watched it twice, then he walked into the bathroom and shut the door. I could hear him crying. I didn't follow him. Some realizations need privacy. Diane had spent years training her son to doubt his own reactions. Now there was nothing to interpret. She knew Emma was inside. She knew I wasn't there. She locked the door anyway. That afternoon, the outside accountant scheduled an emergency ownership meeting for Monday morning. Diane came home from the resort a day early. Not because she missed Emma, because she wanted control of the room. She arrived at our house Sunday evening without asking. Emma was in the living room drawing. I saw Diane through the front window in the same cream coat she had worn in her vacation post. She knocked once, then tried the handle. Locked. She knocked harder. Ben went to the door but didn't open it. "What do you need?" Diane stared at him through the glass. "I need to speak to my family." Emma froze behind me. Diane saw her. Her expression changed instantly. Soft smile, sad eyes, performance. "Emma, sweetheart, Grandma brought you something from the resort." Emma looked at me. I said nothing. She looked back at Diane. "No, thank you." Diane's smile twitched. "It's your birthday present." Emma gripped her pencil. "You left mine at your house." Diane frowned. "What?" "My birthday." Nobody moved. Then Emma whispered, "You left it there." Diane's face hardened. That was the moment she lost my daughter. Not because Emma yelled, not because I told Emma what to think. Because Diane could not even manage an apology to a child standing 10 feet away. She looked at Ben instead. "Are you going to allow this?" Ben opened the door just enough to step outside, then pulled it closed behind him. I couldn't hear everything. I heard Diane say poisoning her. I heard overreaction. I heard family. Then Ben said something very calmly. "You don't get unsupervised access to Emma anymore." Diane's voice went sharp. "You cannot threaten me with my own granddaughter," Ben said. "I'm not threatening you." Then he came inside. Diane stood on our porch for another 5 minutes. She sent me 11 texts while she stood there. I didn't answer one. Monday morning's company meeting was held in the conference room where Diane had humiliated me more times than I could count. Same glass table, same gray chairs, same coffee machine that always leaked. For years Diane sat at the head even though ownership had shifted over time, and Ben now held the largest active share. That morning she was already there when we arrived. Frank sat beside her. The accountant sat across from them. Diane had printed folders. Of course she had. She pushed one toward Ben. "This entire situation has gotten ridiculous." Ben didn't touch it. Diane continued. "The trip was improperly coded." "Fine. I'll reimburse the company. That should end it." The accountant looked at her. "The reimbursement isn't the main issue now." Diane's eyes narrowed. I watched the control begin to slip. He placed her signed certification on the table. "You confirmed in writing that this was business travel and named Emma as a participant." Diane waved one hand. "A clerical description. You wrote it. I was rushed. You signed it. I trusted the information provided to me." That was her first attempt to recover the room. Then she looked directly at me. Information prepared by her. There it was. For 8 years I had been the bookkeeper when the work needed doing. Now I was important enough to blame. I slid one page across the table. Her email, sent from her address, written after I had removed myself from approvals. Family Client Development Retreat. Her words. Diane didn't even look embarrassed. She looked angry that the page existed. I was trying to preserve a legitimate company expense after she vindictively interfered with our travel, the accountant asked. Was Emma at the resort? She was supposed to be. Was she? Diane pressed her lips together. No. Where was she when you left? Diane leaned back. With her parents. Ben pulled out his phone. I almost stopped him. Not because I wanted to protect Diane, because I knew once he played the video, our family would never go back. Then I remembered Emma asking if Grandma knew it was her birthday. I let him press play. The conference room monitor showed Diane and Frank's driveway at 5:41 a.m. Their SUV left. Empty street behind it. Then Diane returned 3 minutes later, unlocked the door, walked inside, came out, locked it. The room was silent. Ben paused the video on the frame of Diane standing at her own front door with the key in her hand. He said, "Emma was upstairs." Frank stared at the table. Diane looked at him. You gave them the camera? He didn't answer. That was her second attempt to recover control, and it made everything worse. She wasn't horrified by what the video showed. She was furious someone had handed it over. The accountant slowly removed his glasses. Diane turned on me. You have wanted to turn Ben against us since the day you married him. I felt the old reflex, the urge to explain, to defend myself, to prove I had tried. Then I realized I didn't care whether Diane believed me. I didn't care whether Frank understood. I didn't care who thought I was difficult. I said, "This is not about me." Diane laughed. "It is always about you." "No, this is about the 10-year-old you locked inside your house while you went on vacation, then listed as a participant on the expense form for that vacation." Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. The accountant closed the folder. Company policy didn't allow personal travel on business accounts. More important, insurance and banking agreements required accurate executive certifications. Diane had already been warned twice in previous years about mixing charges. I knew because I had cleaned up both times. Only now I wasn't cleaning. The company removed her purchasing authority that morning. Frank voluntarily surrendered his. The executive concierge account was closed. The company SUV had to be returned because neither of them had a business use role that justified it anymore. Diane stared at Ben. "You're choosing her." Ben shook his head. "No." He pointed at the frozen frame of his mother locking that door. "I'm choosing my daughter." Diane stood so quickly her chair struck the wall. "You will regret humiliating me like this," Ben answered. "Emma already knows what humiliation feels like." Diane left. Frank stayed seated. For once, nobody followed her. The changes didn't look dramatic at first. That was what made them hurt her. Diane's life had been built from hundreds of little privileges everyone else maintained, because saying no was exhausting. I stopped maintaining them. The next week, the leased SUV disappeared from her driveway. She had to bring back the spotless black vehicle she loved photographing and start driving their 12-year-old personal sedan. At the company holiday vendor dinner, there was no seat reserved for her because she no longer had a company role. When she called the executive travel desk to move another hotel booking, they told her the company account was closed. She called me. I blocked the number. Then came Thanksgiving. For 16 years, Thanksgiving had belonged to Diane. Not officially. Nothing with Diane was ever official. It simply happened because resisting her cost more energy than surrendering. She decided the time, the menu, who sat where, what Emma wore for photographs. Diane would post 20 pictures afterward and write about tradition. That year Ben asked Emma what she wanted. She said, "Can we eat here?" So we did. Just us. At noon, Diane texted Ben, "Dinner is at 4. Don't embarrass the family over this nonsense." At 2, "Your father has been waiting all week to see Emma." At 3, "I have set a place for her." At 3:38, "Family is everything, Ben. Someday you will understand what you are destroying." Ben showed me the message. I looked at the bent pink birthday crown, which I had moved to the shelf beside our family photos. "Do you want to answer?" He shook his head. At 4, Emma was in our kitchen mashing potatoes badly and laughing because half of them had landed on the floor. Nobody made her pose. Nobody corrected her shirt. Nobody told her to smile. At 4:17, someone rang the bell. Diane. Of course, she stood outside holding a covered casserole dish. Ben didn't open the door. Diane rang again. Then she saw Emma through the window. She lifted the dish and smiled. Emma stopped laughing. That was all I needed to see. I walked to the window and closed the curtain. Diane pounded once on the door. "Are you serious?" I didn't answer. She stayed on the porch for 6 minutes. Then she left the casserole on the step and drove away. Nobody brought it inside. Christmas was the same. Then Easter. Then Emma's school concert. Diane found out about that one through someone else and appeared in the lobby with flowers. The school already had the updated pickup and visitor restrictions Ben and I had filed after the birthday. Diane was allowed to attend the public performance. She was not allowed to take Emma anywhere. After the concert, Diane tried to intercept her near the side doors. Emma saw her and immediately reached for my hand. Diane noticed. I saw it hit her. Money had made Diane angry. Losing the company status had made her furious. But Emma reaching for me because she didn't feel safe with her anymore. That broke something pride could not repair. Diane crouched slightly. "Sweetheart, Grandma just wants a hug." Emma moved behind me. No. Diane looked up at me. There was pure hatred in her eyes. You did this. I didn't raise my voice. No, Diane. I moved aside just enough for her to see Emma holding my hand. You did. She tried one final time to rebuild the old family machine. A week before Emma's 11th birthday, invitations went out for a large anniversary party Frank had agreed to host with her. Diane mailed ours instead of texting. Heavy cream envelope, embossed lettering. Inside was a handwritten card. A family shouldn't lose a year over one misunderstanding. Bring Emma. It's time to put this behind us. No apology. Still, not one. Ben read it. Then he handed it to Emma because her name was on the invitation. She read more slowly than we did. Finally she asked, "Do I have to go because they're family?" That question hurt, because I knew where she had learned it. From us. From years of watching adults accept cruelty and call it peace. I knelt in front of her. No. Even if Grandma gets mad? Even then, Emma looked relieved. She walked to the kitchen shelf. The pink paper crown was still there, faded now, bent almost flat. She picked it up. For a second I thought she was going to throw it away. Instead, she handed it to me. I don't want this anymore. I understood. I put the crown inside Diane's anniversary invitation. Then I sealed the envelope. No letter, no speech, no explanation. Ben drove it to his parents' house and left it in their mailbox. Diane called from Frank's phone that night because her number was still blocked. I answered once. Her voice was shaking. How could you send me that? I knew exactly what she was holding. The cheap pink paper crown she had placed on Emma's head the night before her birthday. The one Emma had woken up wearing in an empty house. I said, "She doesn't want it anymore." Diane went silent. Then the old line came, the one that had controlled all of us for years. "But we're family." I looked across the room at Emma. She was sitting beside Ben doing homework, safe, calm, not waiting for anyone's car in the driveway, not asking why she had been left, not begging to be chosen. I finally understood something Diane never had. Family wasn't a lifetime permission slip. It wasn't access. It wasn't obedience. It wasn't a word you posted under vacation pictures while a 10-year-old woke up alone. You're right, I told her. Family is everything. Then I ended the call. And she was no longer ours.